All right, so let's start with this. I think my premise, the committee was saying things without saying things. So let's just go to the top 6 that the committee said.
Okay.
So put that up to the top 6. What the committee is telling you is we want Clemson in because they're defending champs, but we don't like how they've played.
Okay.
So we put them at 5 to punish them, but the other teams play each other, so we'll be able to move them way up. And at 6, we put Georgia over Oregon and Utah, and that's a real thing. Because we want 2 SEC teams because we think it's the best conference, and they get great ratings. And so LSU, Bama, close loser gets in because they go, well, it's the best conference. 3 of the top 6 are SEC teams. And I don't have a problem. The loser of LSU, Bama, I have no problem putting in.
The only thing I would disagree with, I think a lot of that is right. I actually think Alabama at 3 was the biggest deal of the whole playoff. The whole ranking system. You can talk about Minnesota being 17. You can talk about, Oregon being behind Georgia and so on. I actually thought that the biggest revelation was Alabama at 3 because I thought that the message that was sending is you don't have any room for error. You lose at home to LSU, you're likely out. You're likely out because you're going to be a non-division champ. You're not going to go to your conference championship game. I think that's going to be hard to overcome there. I think what this ranking told us is that the road teams in those gigantic matchups, LSU and Penn State, they're actually the ones with some margin for error here, in particular with how the game goes. I think if LSU were to lose that game this week in a close fashion, if Tua is healthy,
hell of a loss.
It would be a hell of a loss.
Way better than Oregon or Utah's, or
maybe. And so I think that they're telling us that actually that hey, Clemson and Alabama, because your schedules have been so weak. Because Clemson, you're likely to play 13 games, go 13-0 against no ranked teams, at the end of the day. Because Alabama, you've got the 127th ranked schedule right now in college football as it relates to opponent win percentage. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. I thought that's what it was saying to us last night.
And here's why I think it's really smart. Yeah, sometimes it happens. And
You're the best.
The reason I don't buy that, because if that was true, then why the hell do you put LSU under Ohio State? They got on the phone and scheduled Texas. But
they're not getting credit for that right now because Texas is not ranked.
But they're all getting healthy, and Texas is going to win about 4 games in a row. But at least they gave them credit. Scheduling Texas and beating them deserves it's valuable.
The math would actually suggest that Ohio State's schedule has been more difficult to date than LSU's. Now, you can roll your eyes on
what computer you use.
Opponent win percentage.
Oh, that's stupid.
It's 563 or something along that stuff, 564 for Ohio State. And there's also another element to this is just the complete nature, the dominance, and the overall quality that we've seen from Ohio State. Think of it this way, Colin. LSU beat the 10th and 11th ranked team as the committee sees them, which is unbelievable. It's a large reason why they're inside the top 3 and in the top 2 right now. They beat them by a combined, I believe it was like 68-45.
Yeah.
The combined score of those 2 games. Ohio State beat the 13th ranked team as the committee sees it and the 20th ranked team as the committee sees it by a combined score of 80-7. Ohio State's just been more dominant.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do eye test. You can actually do the analytics. Every computer on the face of the earth actually favors Ohio State over LSU when you're just coming down to a pure rankings standpoint from the strength of schedule standpoint. And I think that the committee actually has Ohio State by a decent margin over LSU. And Rob Mullins, when he was answering that question, I thought made that very apparent. It was kind of like, hey, they're the best team. We watch the film. We look at the analytics. Like, it's pretty much no question they're the most complete and most dominant team in the country, which I've been saying since week 3.
If I said to you, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, 4th won't matter. We got 3 teams that can line up, coaches, quarterback, 3 teams. Buckeyes, Clemson, Bama. 4th will be irrelevant. They're just the first team to get knocked out by, I kind of feel like that's what we have.
Maybe. I think a lot of that depends on this weekend, right?
Okay.
I mean, a lot of that comes down to LSU and Alabama.
All right.
If Alabama wins this, then yes, we're headed straight down the path of an Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and then whoever qualifies for that 4th spot.
And I will say this. Ohio State's a real team.
There's no doubt in my mind.
You can watch them for 5 minutes. Don't think you're going to get a 33-0 Clemson over Ohio State game.
No.
That ain't happening this year.
No, and I think that the only weakness that they've shown is that Wisconsin got after the quarterback a little bit in the first half and banged up Justin Fields.
But I don't love Clemson's D-line. It's not nearly as good this year.
It's not what they were a year ago, and the best defense of those three is actually Ohio State's. And remember now, if you go back to the start of the BCS, defense actually matters once you get to the championship point. No team has ever won, one team since the start of the BCS has won a national championship with a defense ranked lower than the top 25. It was Auburn with Cam Newton. Their defense was ranked, I believe it was like 58 or something along those lines.
But they had Nick Fairley up front, I think, in the D-line.
They did, and that made it incredibly tough on Darren Thomas and that Oregon team to run the football.
Yeah, see? It's like this thing never shuts off.
It's like a trap.
I can pick out names from the 50s out of this thing.
Can you?
Yeah, depends on what the names are.
Well, one of us were alive in the 50s.
You're a jerk. What a fake jerk.
Got
okay,
him.
so I'm not even going to do your top 10. You put out your top 10. I pretty much agree with it. Ohio State, LSU, Bama, Clemson, Penn State, Oregon. Oregon, you know what? I've been selling Oregon stock all year. People in Portland hate me, but here was my thing. And I do think Oregon's a real team. If you put Oregon and Georgia to coin flip, I'd take Oregon over Utah. I'd take Oregon over Oklahoma. Let me say this about Oregon. I think they have the best quarterback in college football.
Okay.
I talked to an NFL GM this weekend. He said, Justin Herbert, you don't even need to, this is an easy evaluation for us. Secondly, their O-line matched up. It's a real O-line.
Yeah.
It's NFL guys.
They're big and physical.
They
don't have a great back.
No, they're tiny.
I know Verdell ran for over 200 yards against Washington State, but they don't run with great patience or vision. But they're a real team.
This is a team that could beat an SEC or Big Ten team because they have 3 NFL offensive linemen, a top 5 quarterback, and let's be honest, my knock on Oregon is I didn't know if it was a good coaching staff. It's a hell of a recruiting staff. They got NFL players all over the field.
They're recruiting at a very high level. 2 things that you want to be aware of if you're thinking about Oregon as a potential playoff thing. I think that a team that they've got 2 really good arguments at that point if they need them. Here's the first: is that in their first game of the season they were decimated at the wide receiver position, so they were not healthy, and that's something that the committee is supposed to take under consideration.
Do they also consider this? They outplayed Auburn for 3.5 quarters.
That's right. They only trailed for 9 seconds in that game. They had a drop in the end zone. They missed a field goal with a true freshman kicker. I'm not trying to give them a pass, but that's an argument they would use. There's also one other one, Colin. I think it's actually the better argument for Oregon. If at the end of the season they are the 1-loss Pac-12 champion, they will have won 12 straight games and gone 10-0 in conference play.
Yeah.
Did you know that no team in this modern era of 9 conference games and a champ game has gone 10-0 in conference play? We haven't seen it yet. Ohio State might do it. Penn State might do it. But Oregon, if they do that, that would be a huge feather in the cap. And the chairperson of the committee is Rob Mullins. I know he will be recused from the process, but this committee clearly values scheduling, going out there, testing yourself against the best. I have a really strong feeling that if Oregon were to win out, pending on this Alabama-LSU outcome, I really think Oregon is a team that could sneak into the playoff.
If you like Georgia and you're a Southern football fan, you have to like Oregon. Georgia can't throw the ball over the top at all.
That's true.
Oregon's a better offense. Georgia's a better defense. They both have really solid young coaches. If you went to Vegas, on a neutral field, it's a 1-point game.
I agree.
You can't like Georgia and not Oregon. And they both have NFL quarterbacks.
Yep.
By the way, Georgia's got the best offensive lineman, left tackle in football, and their right tackle's great too. So that you got quarterback NFL, great offensive lines, young good coaches, recruiting at a high level.
The advantage would just tip towards Georgia because their front 7 stops the run.
That's
and they do it so well. They held Florida to 1.1 yards rushing per rush last week, which was pretty impressive.
All right, let me look over this, Klatt. Hold on.
What do we got?
Most of your stuff's pretty good here. Okay, here's so I don't want to go down into the weeds too much on this. I like to keep it simple for the audience. I talk to America.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I connect with America.
With your $500 shoes?
There's no reason to bring that up again.
I'm just saying.
They were a gift.
I'm just saying. America, he's talking to you.
Okay, America. So Jim Harbaugh has a new plan for the playoff system, and it's a lot of noise.
Yeah, and it's not very good.
Well, but his theory is, let's get it out to 11. So could I make this argument? College basketball lets everybody in. College football's too exclusive. Isn't there a middle ground at about 7 to 8?
Okay.
What don't you like about Harbaugh's plan?
Here's the deal, without getting into the weeds. As soon as you expand the playoff past 5,
okay,
they are going to give themselves automatic bids for the conference champions. Okay? That's just what's going to happen.
You don't like that?
No, because it automatically nullifies the importance of the regular season, namely non-conference games. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. You can play Wofford, Northwestern State, Citadel.
But you still have to win your conference.
I understand that, but remember that the most unique and important part of college football and the biggest differentiating factor that we have as a sport, which is in large part why it's the second most popular sport in the country, is the fact that the regular season is so important.
Are you sure about that? I believe
so.
I think it's the second most popular sport in America for a lot of reasons. 1, it's football. 2, we bet football. 3, it has a connection to the NFL. 4, we love the draft. 5, it's fun to watch. 6, everybody went to a college, so you got a plaque on your wall.
All of those things are true, and I'm not going to argue with any of those.
Your whole thing is it's all about urgency.
Well, yeah, and there is urgency every single game, every single week. When I go in for Wisconsin or Ohio State, there's urgency there. When Florida and Georgia play each other, there is urgency even outside of the rivalry, and I think that makes a big difference in college football. The last thing that I would say is that even though I don't think it's good for the sport, I do think that that's exactly where we're headed. Let me just
What do you mean? We're headed to 8 or 10 or 11?
We're headed to 8, and it's going to happen before the contract is up. I've had some conversations with very high-powered people, and this is some big J here for you. Ready?
Okay.
So let me get this out real quick. I've had conversations with people that are very much in the know. The reason that this is going to expand to 8 before this contract is done is because it's the only way that some of these conferences that are on shaky ground as it relates to their entire structure remain together.
Okay.
Namely the Pac-12. Okay, so the Pac-12, if they're left just on the outside of the playoff and they keep getting left out, and then the new media contracts come up, guess what? There's likely going to be some shift in terms of conference realignment. Some of those schools are going to leave because they're not happy with the Pac-12 right now.
And you don't want your games,
way that the conference office in the Pac-12 holds this conference together is by lobbying for and getting an automatic qualifying spot for its champion.
All right, fair.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
And I'm telling you that it's going to. I'm not here like, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen within, I would say, 3 to 4 years.
That's why I love that, because I like to include America. I don't like exclusivity. I like to include America in everything.
But the problem is, and you can't argue with this, you cannot point to a season in the history of this sport where you can make a legitimate argument that the 7th and 8th team in the country deserve a chance at a national championship.
I used to make that nonsense argument. You can't make
Why is that nonsense?
But you can't make an argument that the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference could win the title. We still let him into the NBA playoffs. You can't make an argument that Kyle Allen could win the Super Bowl. We'll still let him into the playoffs.
And in your last segment, you were talking about load management. You want load management in college football?
Listen, I got news for you. LSU, Bama. You could say it wouldn't mean as much if we had a playoff. Oh, yeah, guys in the South aren't going to watch LSU Bama.
They'll watch it, but both teams this week's game, LSU and Alabama, in an 8-team playoff scenario would mean nothing.
Oh, but nonsense.
Nothing, because both teams would be going to the playoff regardless.
So
it wouldn't mean anything at all.
Clippers-Lakers played opening night. Didn't mean anything. We all watched.
I mean, that game drew far fewer ratings than any quality college football game. You mean to tell me that you think NBA ratings are good?
Time out. Ravens, Patriots.
Last Friday night, SmackDown on our air on Fox. Go get it, WWE. Smash the NBA.
Well, whatever. All I know is this.
So don't argue for ratings when the ratings aren't there.
You're making an argument that LSU, Bama.
It wouldn't mean anything.
What else are you going to watch?
It's Saturday.
Oh, so but you guys are missing the point.
I get the point.
There's 82 games in the NBA. They're not going to. You're not adding an astronomical amount more games.
How about last weekend's Sunday night affair with the Patriots and Baltimore? Yeah, it was entertaining. Does it matter?
No,
it doesn't matter. Tell me if it
very much matters.
It matters.
Yes,
it does.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, it was.
Why? Because they're going to play each other in the playoffs anyways. All I'm saying is that this sport, college football's biggest differentiating factor and its most important feather in their cap is the fact that the regular season matters.
Yeah, guess what? The NFL season matters, and they have 16 games, and you can lose 5. It's okay. It still matters. You got to watch the games.
But you argue that that's better?
I think.
Why is it better that you can lose 5 and be okay?
Because NFL teams don't play Wolford.
And the NFL ratings are bigger than college football.
I like you. Basically, what you're saying, Klatt, is urgent. Like, I wouldn't watch Bama LSU if we had an 8-team playoff.
Take out of consideration.
I would watch it, the whole thing regardless.
I understand, and they'll get a lot of viewers. I'm telling you that the game itself would mean far less.
God, it's still a great game with 20.
It only matters in sentiment at that point.
Well, guess what?
It doesn't matter for postseason play.
At this point, my life is all sentiment.
Well, I get
that's my whole life at this point.
Trust me, we already established you were alive in the 50s.
Okay, I got to get out of here.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, whatever. And those shoes were a gift, America. I'm opening a hamburger and beer joint.
$500 shoes.
Gift.
That looked like he got them off the guy at the corner.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.